She figured she'd been blown off, that yet another shot at love had fallen apart before it even started. But the moment two 6-year-olds, brimming with purpose and carrying secrets, burst through the coffee shop door, everything took an unexpected turn. They weren't supposed to be there. Their dad had no clue. And the revelation they were about to drop would transform what seemed like a failed date into the launch of something neither she nor he could have ever predicted. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. We are always amazed at how far our stories can reach. Kayla Emerson checked her phone for the 7th time in a mere 3 minutes. 6:47 p.m., 17 minutes past the appointed time. She sat all alone at the corner table of the Maple Avenue coffee shop, her hands wrapped around a ceramic mug of chamomile tea, which had long lost its warmth. The autumn coziness that usually permeated this place now felt stifling. All around her, couples were locked in hushed conversations, their laughter punctuating the smooth jazz playing in the background. She was the only one sitting solo. Kayla resolved to give him 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes. And then she was going to text Diane, her coworker who had orchestrated this whole setup, and tell her that blind dates simply weren't for her. That maybe, after 2 solid years of pouring all her energy into her veterinary practice, she just wasn't ready. Maybe she had been right to keep her guard up. It's just one coffee date, Diane had insisted 3 days earlier, cornering Kayla in the clinic's break room. His name is Matthew Caldwell, he's 34, works as an architectural engineer, and Kayla, he is genuinely wonderful. Trust me on this. But trust was a tough thing. And sitting here, watching the door, feeling that familiar pang of disappointment start to bubble up, trust felt utterly impossible. At 6:51 p.m., the bell above the entrance jingled. Kayla looked up, a flicker of hope igniting in spite of herself. But it wasn't a man in his 30s. It wasn't Matthew Caldwell. It was 2 little girls, identical twins. They couldn't have been more than 6 years old, with bouncy, curly brown hair and bright green eyes that swept the coffee shop with a striking determination. They were wearing matching red jackets over what appeared to be school uniforms. Their tiny hands were clasped together as they took in the room. And then those eyes locked onto Kayla. Before Kayla could even begin to process what was happening, the girls marched purposefully toward her table with the unwavering focus of miniature soldiers on a mission. The taller of the 2, by maybe half an inch, stopped right in front of Kayla, tilted her head, and asked with complete seriousness, "Are you Miss Kayla?" Kayla blinked, surprised. "Yes, I am." "And you are?" "I'm Daisy," the girl announced, then gestured toward her sister. "This is Hazel. Our daddy, he's sorry he's late." The world seemed to wobble a little. These had to be Matthew's daughters. It was the only thing that made sense. But Diane hadn't mentioned any kids, hadn't mentioned twins, hadn't mentioned that he had to stay at work. Hazel added quietly, her voice softer than her sister's. "Because of an emergency." Daisy swiftly covered Hazel's mouth with her hand. "Hazel." Kayla's confusion must have been written all over her face because Daisy sighed. A sigh that sounded far too world-weary for a 6-year-old, and pulled out the chair across from Kayla. She sat down, tugging her sister down beside her. "Okay," Daisy said, folding her hands on the table as if she were about to chair a board meeting. "We should tell the truth." "The truth," Kayla repeated, still bewildered. "Daddy doesn't know we're here?" Hazel whispered, a flash of guilt crossing her small face. Kayla's eyes widened in disbelief. "He doesn't? Wait, what?" "But he is sorry he's late," Daisy insisted. "We know because we heard him on the phone last night." Kayla leaned forward, drawn in despite her best efforts. "Last night?" Hazel nodded, her curls bobbing. "We were supposed to be asleep, but we heard him in the hallway. Someone called about a big problem at the new library building. Something about the foundation. He kept saying that he couldn't believe this was happening tonight. He said he had something really important at 6:30 at the Maple Avenue coffee shop. And you two figured out that was here?" Kayla asked, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips despite the sheer absurdity of the situation. "We are very smart," Daisy stated matter-of-factly. "We remembered the name because Daddy wrote it on the calendar in the kitchen." He circled it 3 times and drew a smiley face. Something warm fluttered in Kayla's chest. A smiley face. He was so excited. Hazel continued, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. He ironed his shirt yesterday. Daddy never irons. Kayla couldn't help but laugh. A soft, genuine sound. These 2 little girls, sitting across from her with their earnest faces and their secret mission, had somehow transformed her disappointing evening into something completely different, something unexpected and, well, kind of amazing. So, when we heard him say he might be late because of work, we made a plan, Daisy explained. We asked Mrs. Ferguson, she's our babysitter, to bring us here. We told her it was really, really important. Kayla glanced toward the window. Sure enough, there was an elderly woman sitting in a sedan parked at the curb, watching the girls with a mixture of bewilderment and long-suffering patience. When she caught Kayla's eye, she offered a small wave. We, kinda tricked her, Hazel admitted, her cheeks flushing. We might have cried a little. Strategic crying, Daisy corrected firmly. It was necessary. Kayla pressed her lips together to keep from bursting out laughing. These girls were something else entirely. So, she said, gathering herself, would you like to sit with me for a bit? Maybe have some hot chocolate? Their faces lit up like it was Christmas morning. Daisy jumped out of her chair and ran to the window, gesturing wildly to Mrs. Ferguson, who sighed dramatically but nodded with a resigned smile. When the girls settled back into their seats, Kayla caught the barista's attention and ordered 2 hot chocolates with extra whipped cream. As they waited, she studied Daisy and Hazel more closely. Beneath their overt confidence and fierce determination, there seemed to be something else, a weight, a sadness that children their age shouldn't have to carry. So, Kayla said gently, tell me about your dad. Does he go on many dates? The question hung in the air for a moment. The twins exchanged a quick glance, some silent communication passing between them, and then Daisy shook her head slowly. Never, she said quietly. You're the first one since Mommy went to heaven. The surrounding noises of the coffee shop, the hiss of the espresso machine, the chatter of other customers, the clinking of cups, all seemed to fade into the background. Kayla felt her heart clench, her breath catching slightly in her throat. When did that happen? She asked, her voice soft with sympathy. 2 years ago, Hazel said, her small hands fidgeting with the edge of her red jacket. Right after we started pre-kindergarten. She got really sick, really fast. The doctor said it was something with her brain. An aneurysm. The word flashed in Kayla's mind, clinical and cold, but she didn't voice it out loud. Instead, she reached across the table and gently squeezed Hazel's hand. I'm so sorry, Kayla whispered. Daddy took care of us all by himself, Daisy said, and there was fierce pride in her voice now. He learned how to braid hair from YouTube videos. YouTube videos? Kayla asked, completely charmed. He watched them every night for a week, Hazel said, a small smile peeking through her sadness. He messed up a lot at first. My braids were all lumpy. But he kept trying, Daisy added. Now he's really good. The hot chocolates arrived, piled high with mounds of whipped cream that threatened to topple over the rims of the mugs. The girls carefully lifted their mugs, trying to sip without getting cream all over their faces. They failed spectacularly, and soon both had white mustaches that made them look like tiny, serious old men. Kayla laughed, and the sound felt good, genuine and light. He makes the best grilled cheese sandwiches, too, Hazel said, licking whipped cream from her upper lip, with 3 kinds of cheese, and he sings to us every night Mommy's favorite songs. His voice isn't as pretty as hers was, but we don't tell him that. Kayla felt tears begin to prick at her eyes. She pictured this man she had never even met, this Matthew Caldwell, staying up late, watching braiding tutorials, determined to give his daughters some semblance of normalcy, learning to navigate grief while still showing up as a superhero for 2 little girls who needed him to be everything. Daddy was really nervous about tonight, Hazel confided conspiratorially. He tried on 4 different shirts. 4? Kayla asked, charmed. And he practiced what to say in the mirror. We weren't supposed to be watching, but we peeked through his bedroom door. What did he practice saying? Daisy straightened up and deepened her voice, attempting to imitate her father. Hi, I'm Matthew. Nice to meet you. She shook her head dramatically. Hello, Kayla. Then again. Kayla. Hi, I'm Matthew Caldwell. He finally just said a bad word. Hazel whispered, her eyes widening, and decided to just be himself. Kayla laughed. Really laughed. And it felt like something inside her chest was starting to loosen, to finally open up. He really wanted to be here, Daisy said, her tone suddenly serious again. Daddy doesn't break promises. That's why we knew the work thing must be really important. He designs buildings to keep people safe, Hazel explained. If something's wrong with the foundation, the whole building could fall down. He always says safety is his responsibility. Safety is his responsibility. Kayla was beginning to understand. These two little girls sitting across from her weren't just adorable conspirators. They were protectors. They were looking out for their father the same way he had been looking out for them. You two must be very proud of him, Kayla said softly. Both girls nodded in perfect unison. He's the best daddy, they said together, their voices overlapping. Then Hazel's expression shifted, becoming somber. But sometimes he's sad, she admitted, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. He looks at Mommy's picture when he thinks we're asleep. We see him standing in the hallway, just staring at it. Kayla's throat tightened. That's why we were happy when Aunt Diane said she found someone nice for him to meet, Daisy explained. We want him to smile more, like he used to. Aunt Diane. The pieces clicked into place. Diane was Matthew's sister-in-law. That's why she had been so insistent about this date. We saw him this morning, Hazel said, and now there was a hint of brightness returning to her voice. Daddy was humming while he made breakfast. Daisy added, Daddy only hums when he's really happy. He made a special pancake shaped like butterflies. Just because it was a good day, she said. Kayla's phone buzzed against the table. She glanced down at the screen. Diane, have you heard from Matthew? He's not answering his phone. Kayla looked back up at the twins. Girls, your dad really doesn't know you're here, does he? His phone is probably in his truck, Daisy said. He always forgets it when he's looking at blueprints. He's probably almost done though, Hazel said hopefully. He told someone on the phone he just needed 2 hours to check everything. Kayla checked the time. 7:25 p.m. If Matthew had gotten to the construction site around 5:30, he might indeed be finishing up soon. An idea sparked in Kayla's mind, wild, impulsive, and maybe just a little crazy. But as she looked at these two brave little girls who had orchestrated this entire intervention, who loved their father so fiercely that they couldn't bear to see him miss this chance at happiness, she couldn't help but smile. I have an idea, Kayla said, leaning forward. What if we brought dinner to your daddy? If he's been working hard, he's probably hungry. The transformation was instantaneous. Daisy and Hazel's faces lit up like they had just been told Christmas was coming early. Really? They gasped in perfect unison. Really? Kayla confirmed. What's his favorite food? Chinese food, Daisy exclaimed, bouncing in her seat. From the Golden Palace on 3rd Street. He loves their orange chicken. But he always orders sweet and sour pork too, and fried rice. Lots of fried rice. And spring rolls, the crispy ones. Kayla pulled out her phone and quickly searched for the restaurant. Then let's order all of that, and maybe some extra for the other people working with him. As Kayla placed the order, the girls continued talking, their words tumbling over each other in their excitement. They told her about how their father had learned to sew just to fix their favorite stuffed animals. How he never missed a school play or a parent-teacher conference, even if it meant leaving work early. How he built them a treehouse last summer, a project that took him 3 months of weekends. The treehouse has a secret password, Hazel whispered, leaning close. It's Mommy's angels because that's what she called us. Daddy says we have her eyes, Daisy said softly. And her smile. She was a music teacher, Hazel explained. She taught little kids to love singing. That's why Daddy sings to us every night. He's trying to keep her music alive. Kayla had to blink back tears. She had come to this coffee shop expecting a simple blind date. Maybe an awkward hour of small talk. Maybe a polite goodbye. Instead, she was sitting with two extraordinary little girls who were teaching her about love, about resilience, about showing up even when life breaks your heart. 20 minutes later, they were packed into Mrs. Ferguson's sedan, bags of fragrant Chinese food piled on their laps, heading toward the construction site. The elderly babysitter had been filled in on the plan and seemed torn between admiration for the girls' romantic scheming and concern about Matthew's reaction. The construction site loomed ahead, a skeletal structure that would eventually become the new public library, lit by temporary floodlights that cast long, dramatic shadows across the lot. It looked like the setting of a movie, all sharp angles and stark light and untapped possibility. They found Matthew in a temporary office trailer, rolling up blueprints while talking to two other construction workers. Even from outside, Kayla could see the exhaustion etched in his posture, the tension radiating from his shoulders. His sleeves were rolled up to his elbows. His hair was disheveled, and there were what looked like smudges of dirt on his blue button-down shirt. He was clearly wrapping things up, putting papers into folders with the focused efficiency of someone who had just solved a major crisis. Daisy knocked on the trailer door, 3 quick, confident raps. Matthew looked up. His eyes landed on his daughters first, and his expression cycled through confusion, shock, and dawning horror in the space of about 2 seconds. Then his gaze shifted to Kayla, standing behind them, and he froze completely. Daisy? Hazel? What are you? How did you? He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes still locked on Kayla. You're Kayla, he said, and it wasn't a question. You're here with my daughters. Surprise, Daisy announced, throwing her arms up triumphantly. We brought dinner. We didn't want Miss Kayla to think you forgot about her, Hazel added, her voice earnest and sweet. Matthew's co-workers, 2 men in their 40s wearing hard hats and knowing grins, quickly grabbed some of the takeout bags. We'll just, take these and go eat outside, one of them said, winking at Matthew. Good luck, boss. They disappeared, leaving Matthew alone with Kayla and the twins in the cramped trailer. For a moment, no one spoke. Matthew just stared, his mouth slightly agape, clearly trying to process how his 2 6-year-old daughters had somehow tracked down his blind date and brought her to a construction site. Mrs. Ferguson brought us, Daisy offered helpfully, sensing her father's impending question. We asked very nicely. We heard you on the phone last night, Hazel confessed, her voice small, about the emergency. And we saw how excited you were about tonight, Daisy continued. You drew a smiley face on the calendar. Matthew's face flushed red. You saw that? We see everything, Daisy said. Seriously. Matthew ran a hand through his already messy hair, and Kayla watched the gesture, noting how his fingers trembled slightly, how his eyes kept darting between her and his daughters like he couldn't quite believe any of this was real. I am so sorry, he said, finally looking directly at Kayla. His voice was rough but sincere. I was just finishing up. I thought I could make it work. Get there just a little late. Maybe text you. I had no idea they would rescue your date, Kayla offered, a smile playing on her lips. We didn't rescue it, Daisy protested indignantly. We caught it. The date was getting away, Hazel explained with utmost seriousness. Despite his obvious embarrassment, Matthew laughed. A real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. The exhaustion seemed to melt away, replaced by something warmer, lighter. Kayla was finally seeing it, the man his daughters had described. The one who made butterfly pancakes and learned to braid hair and sang lullabies even when his voice cracked. My little rescuers, he said softly, pulling both girls into a tight hug. They wrapped their arms around his waist, and for a moment, the 3 of them were their own complete, self-contained unit. When Matthew straightened up, he looked at Kayla again, and this time there was an undeniable vulnerability in his eyes. I understand if you want to forget this ever happened, Having your blind date crashed by two 6-year-olds and turned into a construction site dinner with sawdust and emergency foundation repairs wasn't exactly the plan. Kayla looked at Daisy and Hazel, who were watching her with identical, anxious expressions, their small hands clasped together tightly. She thought about the past hour, about hot chocolate and whipped cream mustaches, about stories of YouTube braiding tutorials and 3-cheese grilled cheese sandwiches, and a man who circled a date on his calendar with a smiley face because he was allowing himself to hope again. Actually, Kayla said, meeting Matthew's eyes, your daughters are extraordinary. They get that from their mother, Matthew said automatically, then caught himself. His expression faltered. I mean, I didn't mean to. It's okay, Kayla said gently. They told me about her. She must have been wonderful. Something shifted in Matthew's face. The defensiveness, the fear of judgment, softened. She was, he said simply. She would have laughed so hard about this. The girls staging a romantic intervention. Daddy, Hazel tugged on his sleeve. The orange chicken's getting cold. And Miss Kayla probably hasn't eaten either, Daisy pointed out pragmatically. Matthew looked down at the bags of food, then back at Kayla. Would you like to have dinner here? I mean, it's not the coffee shop, and there's sawdust everywhere. But I'd love to, Kayla interrupted, and she meant it. They cleared a space on the desk, pushing aside blueprints and clipboards. Matthew found some paper plates in a supply cabinet, apologizing for the lack of proper dinnerware. As they spread out the Chinese food, the girls chattered excitedly, recounting their adventure to their father while he shot Kayla apologetic looks that gradually transformed into something else. Gratitude, wonder, tentative hope. So, you really practiced your introduction 4 times? Kayla teased as she spooned fried rice onto her plate. Matthew groaned, covering his face with one hand. You told her about that? The blue shirt was best, Hazel noted seriously, studying her father. That's the one you picked. Kayla glanced at the shirt, wrinkled now from hours of hard work, but still clearly chosen with care. It's a good choice, she said softly. Matthew met her eyes, and the look that passed between them made Kayla's breath catch. It was brief, barely a second, but it was their recognition, attraction, possibility. Daddy, Hazel said suddenly, breaking the moment. Are you going to ask Miss Kayla on another date? A real one this time? Will you actually show up on time? Daisy added helpfully. Matthew nearly choked on his spring roll. Girls, I like pancakes, Kayla said casually, her eyes twinkling. I hear someone makes them in funny shapes. The twins gasped in perfect, delighted synchronization. Yes, Daddy. Ask her to Saturday pancakes. Matthew looked at Kayla, and there was something raw and hopeful in his expression that made her heart skip a beat. Would you like to come for Saturday morning pancakes? He asked. I promise I'll actually be there this time. No foundation emergencies, no disappearing ex. Kayla suggested. 8 o'clock, and I'll even wear the blue shirt. It's a date, Kayla said. Behind Matthew's back, Daisy and Hazel high-fived each other with barely contained glee. Mission accomplished, Daisy whispered to her sister, but not quite quietly enough. I heard that, you little conspirator, Matthew said, reaching over to ruffle her hair affectionately. Saturday morning arrived with golden autumn sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows of Matthew Caldwell's house. Kayla stood on the front porch at exactly 7:58 a.m., suddenly feeling more nervous than she had at the construction site. Before she could even knock, the door flew open. You came, you came, you came. Daisy and Hazel shrieked in unison, still in their matching pajamas. They grabbed Kayla's hands and pulled her inside with surprising strength for such small humans. We've been waiting since 7 o'clock, Hazel confessed breathlessly. Daddy said we couldn't wake you up by calling, but we wanted to. The house smelled like butter and vanilla and coffee, warm, inviting, and lived in. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. A basket of clean laundry sat on the couch, half folded. School backpacks hung on hooks by the door. And there in the kitchen was Matthew. He was wearing the blue shirt, freshly ironed this time, and jeans, and he had a smudge of flour on his left cheek. When he saw Kayla, he smiled, and it was nothing like the exhausted, stressed man from the construction site. This Matthew was lighter, brighter, more himself. "You made it," he said, and there was genuine relief in his voice. "I made it," Kayla confirmed, "and I'm very curious about these famous butterfly pancakes." "They're the best," Hazel assured her solemnly. "Sometimes Daddy messes up and makes blobs, but we eat those too." The morning unfolded like a dream, easy and natural and right. Matthew flipped pancakes while the girls showed Kayla their latest art projects from school. They ate at the kitchen table, sticky syrup covering small fingers, and laughter filled the spaces between their conversations. Kayla watched Matthew with his daughters. The way he wiped Hazel's face without her even asking. How he cut Daisy's pancakes into smaller pieces even though she insisted she could do it herself. The softness in his eyes when he looked at them. After breakfast, Hazel appeared at Kayla's side with a hairbrush and a hopeful expression. "Daddy's braids are good, but could you try?" Kayla's heart melted. "I'd love to." She sat on the couch with Hazel between her knees, gently brushing out the little girl's curls. Across the room, Matthew stood at the kitchen sink washing dishes, but Kayla could feel him watching. When she glanced up, their eyes met, and something significant passed between them. Something tender and full of promise. He was letting her into his daughter's world. This moment, this simple act of braiding a little girl's hair, it meant something. "Your braids are pretty," Hazel said softly when she finished. "Not as good as Daddy's," Kayla said loyally. "Maybe just as good," Hazel admitted with a shy smile. Daisy appeared then, bouncing on her toes. Sure. Here's the translation and rewrite. Translation to American English *. Should we show Miss Kayla the treehouse? Matthew glanced at Kayla, a question in his eyes. "If you want to see it, fair warning, it's just a treehouse. The girls make it sound like a castle." "It is a castle," Daisy insisted indignantly. Outside, the autumn air was crisp and perfect. The treehouse sat in a large oak tree in the backyard, weathered wood with a rope ladder and a small window. Matthew had clearly built it with his own hands. It wasn't fancy or professional, but it was sturdy and loved. "You have to know the password," Hazel whispered to Kayla at the base of the tree. Kayla knelt down to the girl's level. "What's the password?" The twins looked at each other, some silent conversation happening between them. Then Hazel leaned close and whispered, "Mommy's angels, Mommy's angels." Kayla repeated softly, feeling the weight of being trusted with the sacred thing. The girls beamed and scrambled up the rope ladder. Kayla followed, with Matthew climbing up behind her. Inside, the treehouse was small but cozy. Cushions lined the floor. Drawings covered the walls, mostly butterflies and rainbows. And in one corner, carefully placed, was a small framed photo of a beautiful woman with green eyes and curly brown hair. "That's Mommy," Daisy said simply. Kayla's throat tightened. She was beautiful. Daddy built this the summer after she died. He worked on it every weekend. We helped sometimes, but mostly we just watched. Matthew's voice was quiet when he spoke. "I needed to build something. Something that would last. Something they could have that was permanent." Later, when the girls were playing in the yard, Matthew and Kayla sat on the back porch steps, coffee mugs warming their hands. "I haven't done this in a long time," Matthew said quietly. "Let someone in. I mean, it's terrifying." "I know," Kayla said. "I spent 2 years avoiding it, telling myself my work was enough." "What changed?" "Two very determined 6-year-olds walked into a coffee shop," Kayla said with a soft laugh. "They didn't give me much choice." Matthew smiled, but it faded into something more serious. "Kayla, I need to be honest with you. I come with complications. 2 of them, to be exact. They're my whole world, and anyone who's in my life has to understand that." "I wouldn't want it any other way," Kayla said simply. She turned to face him fully. "Matthew, your daughters didn't scare me off. They're the reason I'm here. They're incredible. And the way you love them," her voice caught, "the way you show up for them every single day, even when it's hard, that's the most attractive thing I've ever seen." Matthew's eyes glistened. I haven't felt this way in a long time, he admitted, his voice rough. I didn't think I could again. And it's scary because last time I loved someone this much. He stopped, swallowed hard. I lost her. Kayla reached over and took his hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally, perfectly. I'm scared too, she whispered. But I think being scared means it matters. Means it's real. Yeah, Matthew said softly. It does. From the yard, Daisy called out, Daddy, Miss Kayla, come see the butterfly we found. Matthew squeezed Kayla's hand once before standing. Come on, he said, pulling her up with him. Apparently, there's a butterfly that needs immediate attention. 3 months passed like pages turning in a story, each one filled with moments that built a life together. Kayla sat in the audience at Daisy and Hazel's school play, cheering louder than anyone else when they appeared on stage as singing flowers. Matthew's hand found hers in the dark auditorium, and he whispered, Thank you for being here. She started bringing coffee to his construction sites, learning the difference between blueprints and elevation drawings, meeting his coworkers, who teased him mercilessly about the cute vet from the blind date. They went to a pumpkin patch in October, all 4 of them. The girls insisted on picking pumpkins that matched, and somehow they convinced Kayla and Matthew to carry 2 enormous ones that were the same shape. Daddy, can't you see? Halloween arrived. Kayla helped with costumes. Butterfly wings made of wire hangers and tissue paper. The girls fluttered around the house, and Matthew looked at Kayla with such warmth that her breath caught. Their mother would have loved this, he said quietly while the girls were gathering their trick-or-treat bags. She would have loved you. On a quiet Tuesday evening in November, after tucking the girls into bed, Matthew and Kayla sat on the couch watching a movie neither of them was really paying attention to. Daisy and Hazel had fallen asleep between them, their small bodies warm and heavy with sleep. Matthew reached over the sleeping girls, his hand finding Kayla's. Their fingers linked, and something settled in Kayla's chest. A feeling of rightness, of home, of belonging. Their first kiss happened on a snowy December evening. The girls were asleep upstairs, and Kayla was getting ready to leave. Matthew walked her to the door and they stood there in the entryway, the porch light casting soft shadows. I don't want you to go, he said quietly. I don't want to go either, Kayla admitted. Matthew reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered on her cheek. Can I? She kissed him before he could finish the question. It was soft at first, tentative testing. Then his hands slid to her waist and hers wrapped around his neck, and it deepened into something sure and certain and inevitable. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Matthew pressed his forehead to hers. I'm falling in love with you, he whispered. I'm already there, Kayla whispered back. Upstairs, neither of them knew that 2 little girls were peeking through the banister, watching with wide smiles and clasped hands. Daddy's happy again, Hazel whispered to her sister. We did good, Daisy confirmed with satisfaction. 6 months after 2 little girls walked into a coffee shop on a mission, Matthew Caldwell stood at the door of that same coffee shop with a small velvet box in his pocket and his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. The girls were with Mrs. Ferguson, allegedly having dinner and movie night, but really waiting by their phones for the text that would tell them to come. Matthew had told them his plan 3 days ago. Daisy had cried. Hazel had hugged him so tight he couldn't breathe. Both had insisted on helping him pick the ring, dragging him to 3 different jewelry stores until they found the one that sparkled like Mommy's eyes. Now he sat at the corner table, the exact table where Kayla had sat alone 6 months ago, and waited. When Kayla walked through the door, she looked confused. Matthew, I thought we were meeting at the restaurant on 5th. Come sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. She sat, her brow furrowed. Is everything okay? Everything's perfect, Matthew said, his hands shaking. I wanted to bring you here, to where it all started. Kayla's expression softened, understanding dawning. 6 months ago, Matthew continued, I was supposed to meet you right here at 6:30. I was 17 minutes late. I thought I'd ruined everything before it even began. Matthew. But 2 little girls had other plans. They walked through that door with determination in their eyes and whipped cream on their noses. And they changed my life. Kayla's eyes were already glistening. They brought me back to life, Matthew said, his voice cracking. But you, Kayla, you gave me permission to live again, to hope again, to believe that loving someone new didn't mean betraying the love I lost. He pulled out the velvet box, and Kayla's hand flew to her mouth. You walked into our lives when we needed you most, Matthew said, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. You loved my daughters like they were your own. You brought light back into our house. You made butterfly pancakes taste better. He stopped, overwhelmed. You're my second chance, and I don't want to waste another second of it. Kayla Emerson, will you marry me? For a moment, Kayla couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded frantically. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times yes. Matthew slid the ring onto her finger with trembling hands. It fit perfectly, just like everything else about them. And then the bell above the door chimed. We knew it. Daisy and Hazel burst through the entrance like tiny tornadoes, Mrs. Ferguson trailing behind them with a resigned but happy smile. The girls crashed into Kayla and Matthew, a tangle of arms and tears and laughter. We knew you'd say yes, Daisy squealed. We picked the ring, Hazel announced proudly. Do you like it? Kayla laughed through her tears, pulling both girls into her arms. I love it. I love you both so much. We love you too, they said in unison. Matthew wrapped his arms around all three of them. And in that moment, in the same coffee shop where this had all begun, they became what they were always meant to be. A family. 1 year later, on a perfect autumn Saturday, Kayla stood in a simple white dress in front of 30 people who loved them. The ceremony was small, intimate, held in the same backyard where the treehouse stood. Daisy and Hazel walked down the aisle first, wearing butterfly dresses that shimmered in the sunlight. They carried a single white rose between them, which they carefully placed on an empty chair in the front row. A chair for the mother who couldn't be there, but whose love had shaped the daughters, who would now call Kayla family. When it was time for vows, Kayla's voice was steady, despite the tears on her cheeks. I came to a coffee shop looking for a date. I found 2 little matchmakers instead. They rescued me as much as you rescued me. They taught me that love doesn't always arrive on time. Sometimes it's 17 minutes late, carried in by 2 brave girls who refused to let their daddy's happiness slip away. She turned to Daisy and Hazel, who stood beside her in their butterfly dresses. Thank you for choosing me, she whispered. Thank you for letting me love you. Matthew's vows were simple. You gave me permission to love again, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You taught me that honoring the past doesn't mean sacrificing the future. I love you, Kayla, forever. When they kissed, Daisy and Hazel cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, as the sun set golden over the yard, Kayla found herself standing alone for a moment near the treehouse. She looked up at the structure Matthew had built from grief and determination, and she whispered to the wind, Thank you for raising such beautiful souls, for teaching them to be brave, for loving them so well that they knew how to recognize love when they saw it. I'll take care of them. Promise. She felt Matthew's arms wrap around her from behind. She would have loved you, he murmured into her hair. I hope so, Kayla said. I know so. They stood there together, watching Daisy and Hazel play with the other children at the reception, their butterfly wings catching the last light of day. Sometimes love doesn't arrive on time. Sometimes it's 17 minutes late, carried by 2 little girls who refuse to let it slip away. Sometimes the best things in life come wrapped in chaos and whipped cream and construction site dinners. Sometimes you walk into a coffee shop looking for coffee and walk out with a family. That's the thing about second chances. They don't always arrive the way you expect. But when they do, when you're brave enough to say yes to the messy, unexpected, beautiful possibility of it all, that's when the real story begins. Rewritten version, American English, write and expand deeply. Hey, should we let Miss Kayla in on the treehouse secret? Matthew's eyes flickered towards Kayla, a silent question hanging in the air between them. Just so you know, if you're going to check it out, fair warning, it's just a treehouse. The girls have a way of hyping it up like it's some kind of majestic castle. Daisy, ever the staunch defender of her domain, piped up with playful indignation. It is a castle. The air outside held that perfect autumn bite, the kind that makes you want to pull your sweater a little tighter. The treehouse, a testament to time and weather, nestled comfortably within the sturdy embrace of a sprawling oak in the backyard. A simple rope ladder dangled invitingly, and a small, square window offered a glimpse into its secrets. You could tell Matthew had poured his heart into building it with his own 2 hands. It wasn't some professionally designed masterpiece, but it had a solid, loving feel to it, a certain charm that only comes from something made with genuine care. As they approached the tree, Hazel, suddenly conspiratorial, turned to Kayla and whispered, "You gotta know the password, you know?" Kayla gently knelt down, meeting the little girl at eye level. "Oh, I do? Well, what is the password then?" The twins exchanged a look, a silent language passing between them that only siblings truly understand. Then, Hazel leaned in close, her voice barely audible. "Mommy's angels. You gotta say, Mommy's angels." Kayla repeated the phrase softly, the words feeling strangely heavy, imbued with a sense of sacred trust. Mommy's angels. A wave of warmth washed over her, a deep understanding of the special place she was being allowed to enter. The girls, their faces now beaming with anticipation, practically vibrated with excitement, then eagerly scrambled up the rope ladder, their small hands gripping the worn fibers. Kayla followed close behind, with Matthew bringing up the rear, his eyes reflecting a mix of pride and quiet hope. Inside, the treehouse, though compact, felt surprisingly cozy and welcoming. Soft cushions, worn with love, lined the floor, creating a comfortable little nest. The walls were a riot of color and imagination, covered in children's drawings. Whimsical butterflies with oversized wings, vibrant rainbows arcing across sunny skies, and stick-figure families holding hands. And there, carefully positioned in a place of honor in one corner, was a small, framed photograph. It showed a beautiful woman, her green eyes sparkling with warmth, her curly brown hair framing a radiant smile. Daisy, her voice filled with simple, unadorned love, pointed to the picture. "That's Mommy." Kayla's throat tightened, a lump forming that made it difficult to speak. After a moment, she managed, "She was beautiful." Matthew's voice was soft, tinged with a bittersweet melancholy. "I built this the summer after she died. I worked on it every weekend just trying to do something. The girls helped sometimes, but mostly they just watched me." He paused, lost in memory for a moment. "I needed to build something that would last. Something they could always have, something permanent." Later, the girls, their energy boundless, had returned to the yard to play, chasing each other among the trees. Matthew and Kayla found themselves sitting together on the back porch steps, cradling steaming mugs of coffee in their hands, the warmth seeping into their skin. Matthew broke the comfortable silence, his voice quiet, almost hesitant. "I haven't done this in a long time. Let someone in, it's terrifying, to be honest." Kayla nodded slowly, understanding etched on her face. "I get it. I spent 2 years avoiding it, just burying myself in my work, telling myself that was enough." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the trees, and Matthew looked at her, a question in his eyes. "So what changed?" Kayla chuckled softly, a fond smile playing on her lips. "Two very determined 6-year-olds walked into a coffee shop and kinda turned my world upside down. They didn't exactly give me much of a choice, you know?" Matthew's lips curved into a smile, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. But the smile soon faded, replaced by a look of earnest sincerity. "Kayla, I need to be completely honest with you up front. I come with complications. 2 of them, to be precise. They're my whole world, the center of my universe. And anyone who's gonna be in my life has to understand that, has to accept that." Kayla met his gaze steadily, her eyes filled with warmth and unwavering conviction. "Matthew, I wouldn't want it any other way. Your daughters didn't scare me off, not even for a second. Actually, they're a big reason why I'm here, standing here with you right now. They're incredible, truly. And the way you love them. Her voice caught, a wave of emotion washing over her. The way you show up for them, every single day, even when it's hard, when you're tired or frustrated, that's the most attractive, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. Matthew's eyes glistened, the raw emotion he'd kept bottled up for so long threatening to spill over. His voice was rough with emotion as he admitted, I haven't felt this way, this alive, in such a long time. I honestly didn't think I could again. And it's scary, Kayla, because the last time I loved someone this much, he stopped, swallowed hard, the memory clearly painful. I lost her. I don't know if I can go through that again. Kayla reached out, her hand finding his, their fingers intertwining naturally, fitting together as if they were always meant to be. I'm scared too, Matthew, she whispered, her voice filled with empathy. But I think being scared means it matters, you know? It means it's real, that it's worth fighting for. Matthew looked at her, his eyes searching hers, and then he nodded slowly, a glimmer of hope returning to his gaze. Yeah, he said softly, a faint smile gracing his lips. It does. Just then, Daisy's voice, clear and bright, rang out from the yard. Daddy, Miss Kayla, come quick. Come see the butterfly we found. It's the prettiest one ever. Matthew squeezed Kayla's hand reassuringly before standing up, pulling her up with him. Come on, he said, his voice now lighter, laced with affection. Apparently, there's a butterfly that requires our immediate, undivided attention. Duty calls. The next 3 months unfolded like pages turning in a cherished storybook. Each day a new chapter filled with shared moments, quiet joys, and the gradual weaving together of their lives. Kayla found herself sitting in the audience at Daisy and Hazel's school play, her heart swelling with pride as she watched them on stage, dressed as singing flowers, their voices sweet and clear. She cheered louder than anyone else, her enthusiasm contagious. In the darkened auditorium, Matthew's hand found hers, a silent expression of gratitude, and he whispered, Thank you for being here. It means the world to them. And to me. She started making regular trips to his construction sites, bringing him and his crew much-needed coffee and snacks. She even started learning the lingo, asking questions about blueprints and elevation drawings, much to the amusement of his coworkers, who never missed an opportunity to tease him mercilessly about the cute vet from the blind date that seemed to be turning into something much more. October arrived, bringing with it the crisp air and vibrant colors of fall. They all went to a pumpkin patch, the 4 of them, bundled up in sweaters and scarves. The girls, of course, insisted on picking pumpkins that matched, 2 perfectly round, bright orange gourds. And somehow, with their irresistible charm and persuasive arguments, they managed to convince Kayla and Matthew to carry 2 enormous pumpkins of the exact same shape, size and color, grumbling good-naturedly about the weight all the way back to the car. Daddy, can't you see? They're twins, just like us. They have to be together. Halloween night was a whirlwind of costumes and candy. Kayla threw herself into helping the girls create their costumes, fashioning delicate butterfly wings out of wire hangers and layers of shimmering tissue paper. The girls, their faces alight with excitement, fluttered around the house like the very butterflies they were emulating, giggling and chattering. Matthew watched them, his eyes fixed on Kayla, filled with such profound warmth and gratitude that it stole her breath away. Later, while the girls were busy gathering their trick-or-treat bags, he turned to Kayla, his voice quiet with emotion. Their mother would have absolutely loved this. She would have loved seeing them so happy. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. She would have loved you, Kayla. I know it. On a quiet Tuesday evening in November, after the ritual of tucking the girls into bed with stories and kisses, Matthew and Kayla found themselves on the couch, ostensibly watching a movie. But neither of them was really paying attention to the screen. Daisy and Hazel had somehow managed to wiggle their way between them, falling asleep almost instantly, their small bodies warm and heavy with the innocent slumber of childhood. Matthew, careful not to disturb them, reached over the sleeping girls, his hand gently finding Kayla's. Their fingers linked together, a silent connection passing between them, and a deep sense of peace settled in Kayla's chest, a feeling of rightness, of belonging, of finally coming home. Their first kiss, the moment that sealed their unspoken feelings, happened on a snowy December evening. The girls were sound asleep upstairs, dreaming sweet dreams of sugar plums and reindeer, and Kayla was getting ready to leave for the night. Matthew walked her to the door, and they stood there in the entryway, bathed in the soft glow of the porch light, casting gentle shadows around them. Matthew, his voice low and husky, broke the comfortable silence. "I don't want you to go." Kayla looked up at him, her heart pounding in her chest, and confessed softly, "I don't want to go either." Matthew reached out, his hand gently tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his touch feather-light. His hand lingered on her cheek, his thumb caressing her skin. He gazed into her eyes, a silent question swirling within them. "Can I?" She didn't let him finish the question. She leaned in and kissed him, her lips meeting his in a soft, tentative exploration. It was gentle at first, hesitant, like testing the waters. Then, his hands slid to her waist, drawing her closer, and hers wrapped around his neck, pulling him in even tighter. The kiss deepened, transforming into something sure, certain, and inevitable, a culmination of weeks of unspoken desires and growing affection. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, their hearts racing, Matthew pressed his forehead against hers, his voice a low whisper. "I'm falling in love with you, Kayla." Kayla, her voice equally soft, whispered back, "I'm already there, Matthew. I think I have been for a while now." Unbeknownst to them, upstairs, two little girls were peeking through the banister, their eyes wide with excitement, their hands clasped together in anticipation. "Daddy's happy again," Hazel whispered to her sister, her voice filled with joy. Daisy, her face radiating satisfaction, nodded in agreement. "We did good." 6 months after two little girls embarked on a mission in a coffee shop, Matthew Caldwell stood nervously at the door of that very same coffee shop. His heart was pounding so hard he was afraid it might actually break through his ribs. He clutched a small velvet box in his pocket, the weight of it a tangible reminder of the momentous question he was about to ask. The girls were with Mrs. Ferguson, supposedly enjoying a dinner and movie night, but in reality, they were glued to their phones, anxiously awaiting the text message that would signal them to make their grand entrance. Matthew had laid out his plan for them 3 days prior. Daisy had burst into tears of joy, and Hazel had hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. Both of them had insisted on accompanying him to pick out the ring, dragging him to 3 different jewelry stores until they finally found the one that, in their expert opinion, sparkled just like Mommy's eyes. Now he sat at the corner table, the exact same table where Kayla had sat alone 6 months ago, his nerves on edge as he waited for her arrival. When Kayla finally walked through the door, her expression was one of confusion. "Matthew, what's going on? I thought we were meeting at the restaurant on 5th. He gestured to the chair across from him, a nervous smile on his face. "Come sit. I have something I want to talk to you about." She sat down, her brow furrowed with concern. "Is everything okay? You seem tense." "Everything's perfect, actually," Matthew said, his voice slightly shaky. "I wanted to bring you here, back to where it all started, to the place where our lives intersected." Kayla's expression softened, a look of understanding dawning in her eyes. "6 months ago," Matthew continued, his voice filled with emotion, "I was supposed to meet you right here at 6:30, and I was 17 minutes late. I was a mess. I thought I had ruined everything before it even began, that I'd blown my only chance." "Matthew," Kayla reached across the table, her hand covering his, her touch reassuring. "But then," he said, his voice catching, "two little girls had other plans. They walked through that door with determination in their eyes, their faces covered in whipped cream, and they completely changed my life, Kayla. They brought me back to life, gave me a reason to smile again." He squeezed her hand, his eyes shining with love and gratitude. "But you, Kayla, you gave me permission to live again, to hope again, to believe that loving someone new didn't mean betraying the love I had lost." You showed me it was possible to carry both with me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small velvet box, his hands trembling slightly. Kayla's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with surprise. You walked into our lives when we needed you most, Matthew said, his voice thick with emotion. As he opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring, a diamond sparkling softly in the light. You loved my daughters as if they were your own, embracing them with your whole heart. You brought light back into our house, filling it with laughter and joy. You even made butterfly pancakes taste better. He stopped, overwhelmed by the depth of his feelings. You're my second chance, Kayla, and I don't want to waste another second of it. Kayla Emerson, will you marry me? Will you be my wife? Will you be our family? For a long moment, Kayla was speechless, tears streaming down her face, blurring her vision. She could only nod frantically, her heart overflowing with love. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times yes, Matthew. Of course I will. With trembling hands, Matthew carefully slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it were always meant to be there, just like everything else about them. And just then, as if on cue, the bell above the door chimed, announcing the arrival of two very special guests. We knew it. Daisy and Hazel burst through the entrance like tiny tornadoes, their faces flushed with excitement, Mrs. Ferguson trailing behind them, her expression a mixture of resignation and happiness. The girls crashed into Kayla and Matthew, engulfing them in a tangle of arms, tears, and joyful laughter. We knew you'd say yes, Daddy, Daisy squealed, jumping up and down. We picked the ring, Hazel announced proudly, holding up Kayla's hand to admire the sparkling diamond. Do you like it? We made sure it was the sparkliest one. Kayla laughed through her tears, pulling both girls into her arms, squeezing them tightly. I love it. It's perfect. And I love you both so much. We love you too, Kayla, they said in unison, their voices filled with pure, unadulterated joy. Matthew wrapped his arms around all three of them, pulling them close, holding them tight. And in that moment, standing there in the same coffee shop where their journey had begun, they became what they were always meant to be. A family, bound together by love, laughter, and the unwavering belief in second chances. 1 year later, on a perfect autumn Saturday, the kind that makes you believe in magic, Kayla stood radiant in a simple white dress, surrounded by 30 of their closest friends and family, people who had witnessed their love story unfold and had cheered them on every step of the way. The ceremony was small, intimate, and deeply personal, held in the same backyard where the treehouse stood, a silent witness to their love and commitment. Daisy and Hazel, dressed in shimmering butterfly dresses that caught the sunlight with every movement, walked down the aisle first, their faces beaming with pride. They carried a single white rose between them, which they carefully and reverently placed on an empty chair in the front row. It was a chair for the mother who couldn't be there physically, but whose love had shaped the beautiful souls of these two daughters, who would now call Kayla Mom. When it was time for Kayla to recite her vows, her voice was surprisingly steady, despite the tears that glistened on her cheeks. I came to a coffee shop that day looking for a date, maybe a bit of romance, but instead, I found two little matchmakers, two incredibly special little girls. They rescued me as much as you rescued me, Matthew. They taught me that love doesn't always arrive on time, perfectly orchestrated. Sometimes it's 17 minutes late, messy and unexpected, carried in by two brave little girls who refused to let their daddy's happiness slip away. She turned to Daisy and Hazel, who stood beside her in their butterfly dresses, their eyes shining with love and adoration. Thank you, my sweet girls, for choosing me. Thank you for letting me love you. Matthew's vows were simple, but filled with profound emotion. You gave me permission to love again, Kayla, he said, his voice thick with emotion, his eyes locked on hers. You taught me that honoring the past doesn't mean sacrificing the future, that it's possible to cherish the memories while still embracing new beginnings. I love you, Kayla, now and forever. As they leaned in for their first kiss as husband and wife, Daisy and Hazel cheered louder than anyone, their joy echoing through the air, celebrating the union of their family. At the reception, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the yard, Kayla found herself standing alone for a quiet moment near the treehouse. She looked up at the weathered structure that Matthew had built from grief and determination, a symbol of resilience and enduring love. She closed her eyes for a moment and whispered to the wind, "Thank you, whoever you are, for raising such beautiful souls, for teaching them to be brave, for loving them so well that they knew how to recognize love when they saw it. I promise you I'll take care of them. I'll love them with all my heart." She felt Matthew's arms wrap around her from behind, pulling her close, his chin resting gently on her head. "She would have loved you, Kayla," he murmured into her hair, his voice filled with certainty. "I hope so," Kayla said softly. Matthew squeezed her tighter. "I know so." They stood there together, hand in hand, watching Daisy and Hazel play with the other children at the reception, their butterfly wings fluttering in the last rays of sunlight. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive on time, perfectly planned or neatly packaged. Sometimes it's 17 minutes late, a little chaotic, a little messy, but carried in by two little girls who refuse to let it slip away. Sometimes the best things in life come wrapped in chaos and whipped cream and construction site dinners. Sometimes you walk into a coffee shop looking for a simple cup of coffee and walk out with a family, a whole new world of love and happiness. That's the beautiful, unpredictable thing about second chances. They don't always arrive the way you expect them to, but they often bring even greater joy than you ever imagined possible. And when they do arrive, when you're brave enough to open your heart and say yes to the messy, unexpected, beautiful possibility of it all, that's when the real story, the truly amazing adventure, begins.